Hi, this is Jeff. This week we're talking with one of the most talented actors in all of Michigan, in my view, Nancy Kammer Wildern. We're going to be talking about her origin story, growing up in Michigan, and much more. So this week we're going to try something a little different. Instead of posting the full hour-long video in one day, we're going to split up our interview into two half-hour segments, which hopefully will be a lot easier for some of you to digest. So today, Wednesday, we're going to be posting the first half, and on Friday, we'll post the second half. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. Until then, enjoy the interview.
I fell in love with all the actors. I thought they were all funny and magical and beautiful, and, you know, they are. She said, I think you should come and be in the company. You know, Shakespeare's a little intimidating, so let me see what that's about. I mean, I hope I haven't burned too many bridges. I'm sure I have burned some.
Hello, and welcome to Michigan Theater and Film Talk, the show dedicated to talking with local Michigan theater and film professionals from all over the state. My name is Jeff Tamakis. Before we begin, don't forget to, if you are watching on Facebook, to go ahead and like my page, which is Michigan Michael Chekhov Classes -M2C2. And if you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. If you're not on YouTube, you can go on YouTube at Michigan Chekhov, 2 words, CHEKHOV, and you can find my various videos and enjoy. But go ahead and subscribe. Don't forget to like either way, and of course, as always, share this with everyone you know, have known, and will know for the rest of your life. My guest today is the wonderful and incomparable Nancy Kammer.
Well,
Yes, who is one of the finest actresses I know.
oh, Jeff.
And I'm very excited to talk with you today. The question I always like to ask first, because I'm really interested in it, is I'm fascinated with this question, which is, how did you get started in theater? How long have you been doing it? And what's your origin story in this crazy business?
Okay, well, my origin story for being a professional is getting my equity card at Meadowbrook in 1976. Before that, you know, student at MSU, took a summer course at Tanglewood with Boston University professors. Rose Shulman ultimately became my coach, and I followed her back to her theater of origin, which was Hetero Theater in Moylan, Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. And Joe Gifford, who was a movement instructor at Boston University, and the two of them found that their origins, no, not their origins, their theories of how to develop a character really blended well. His was all about movement, and hers was, you know, about getting into the character. She was a theater coach. She knew more about human nature than anybody I've ever met. And she's the one who said, as an actor, you just have to keep your eyes and ears and mind open always to everything. So go study art, study music, study psychology. She said acting was the study of human behavior. So the more you know about that, the better. And she just really boiled it down. She was a real crusty broad. She chain smoked through all the classes. That's the old
school theater teacher, right?
Yeah. And she was just like, you know, people would cry and she'd go, just keep going. It's just energy. Keep going, you know. And
I miss theater teachers like that.
I know.
You don't see those anymore.
You can't smoke anymore.
I know.
That's part of the problem.
That's part of the problem, I guess.
Yeah, we all
can't destroy yourself.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
She was amazing. Okay, so, but before that, like everybody else, as a kid, you probably feel some buzz, you know, when you did something and somebody laughed. Or I remember taking Fred Waring's Christmas album and doing a rendition of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in 3rd grade, and, you know, just had him in the aisles. So I was a goofball. I was a middle kid. I think middle kids try to make it work. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the young is the baby, the old is the boss, and the middle one is like, okay, where are we going? Let's smooth it
The
out.
balancer, maybe.
Yeah, the balancer or the instigator.
Oh, well.
There's that too.
Or the unbalancer.
Yeah. My mom said you should go into law because all you do is argue with me. So, but yeah. Anyway, so there was that kid stuff. But I remember the first time I got the nerve up. We moved from a small town in the Thumb. We had lived in Detroit. Most of my, well, you know, I was born here. My parents were born here. They got married here. And then we moved to Lexington when, you know, my dad lost his company, his business and everything. And we moved up there to my grandfather's cottage for a while. Then we moved into town and rented a house. And that was great because we had been living in Grosse Pointe. So that would have been a real narrow channel. But having this rural thing thrown in meant that we were free to roam the streets. I spent all the seasons on the water. We were right up the hill from the lake, Lake Huron.
Again, how old were you when you moved to the...
Fourth grade.
You were in fourth... So you were like...
10?
9
maybe?
or 10.
Yeah.
So how was that transition? Because you were in the city, right?
For me, it was great because the country and that wildness. Mm-hmm. I could tell it was hard for my mom and dad, and my sister was in junior high, so it was really hard for her. Yeah. But we all adapted really well. We got involved with a small church there, so we were, you know, doing all the things that you do in that kind of a community. And I had pals. I have a circle of 10 women that some of them went to kindergarten together, and we get together every 2 years at somebody's house and spend a long weekend or a week. Wow. That's phenomenal, right?
Well, yeah. I mean,
so that kind of
really
tight group, and we really don't agree on politics a lot, but you know, we go out to eat, go to the bar. That's all right.
It's good. You find
go shopping, go to museums.
There are so many other things to talk about than politics. That's something that if you were on Facebook, you would hardly know.
Oh, boy. Yes, it's true.
But it's true. Believe it or not, there is a wealth of subjects.
You can
to find common ground on. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but then I moved to Saginaw, which was another medium-sized Rust Belt city, in high school. And freshman or sophomore, I can't remember sophomore, I guess, yeah. So that was a huge high school. They had a band, they had an orchestra, so I did all of that, and they had extremely interesting classes, and they had theater. And they had a wonderful musical every year, right? Mm-hmm. So my uncle, Meredith Dallas, was a professor at Antioch College, but he also worked with Joe Papp in New York in the early days when the Shakespeare thing was dragged around on a platform behind a truck, and then they just sort of go ta-da and do Shakespeare and stuff. That's yeah. And so he was kind of my mentor and my idol, and I used to go down in the summer sometimes and watch him direct, and just fell in love with all the actors. I thought they were all funny and magical and beautiful, and you know, they are.
That's true.
They really are. My mom loved being with actors.
Mm-hmm.
She did. She said, actors just accept you right from where you are and who you are. And you know, that's partly because it's an art form that goes on as long as you live. There's always roles from when you're a kid right on through till when you're very old. I can't remember the guy's name, but some old British actor was on his deathbed, and he was in the wrong box. I don't know if you ever saw that funny British movie, but anyway, he was a character actor. And his friend was sitting with him, and he said, "Is it? Are you in pain? Is it hard?" And he said, "Acting is hard. Dying is easy." And so I kind of hope that's the way it is, because it is hard. And the older I get, the more I realize how hard it is to, you know, rip that part of you open that lets the audience come into your heart and your vulnerability, and, you know, with that honesty. So I don't know. I'm all off track now. Told the story about the old guy. Oh, okay. So then theater.
Well, so you fell
High
in love with
school.
all these actors
Yeah,
that you were
so-
watching.
Yeah. So
And
I
did you go, well, I want to be that. I want to.
Oh, I just was in love with it. Yeah,
Mhm.
I was totally enamored. I was, yeah, very bitten. So when I auditioned for My Fair Lady, I knew I didn't have the singing chops, but I did it and did a scene. And I went back and sat down, and I could see everybody kind of turning around. Like all of a sudden, who was that? And the minute I walked out on stage, I felt like I'm home.
Hi, this is Jeff. Just a friendly reminder to sign up for my new workshop on Wednesday, March 4th from 6:30 to 9:30 at the Universalist Unitarian Church of Farmington. We're going over auditions. And since audition season is coming up, I suggest you come by, learn a few tricks. Don't forget, it's totally pay what you can, but you have to sign up by going to my website, www.michigancheckoff.com. See you guys later.
So that was the moment. We all have a moment. What was your moment?
What was my moment?
Yeah.
Realizing that theater was going to be my life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went to grad school swearing I wouldn't become a theater major, but I was totally rudderless. Well, because I had a theater teacher in high school who did not encourage us to become theater majors. She was like, "Do not do it. It's a terrible life. You're going to die on the streets, homeless." And as a result, because theater really was, I spent 5 out of the 7 hours of my senior year of the 7 periods in the theater. And still, I didn't have the awareness to understand how bitten, how smitten I was. And so what's strange is I went to school as an undecided student. And
you didn't claim a major?
I didn't claim a major.
Okay.
And was walking through the student center. And they, to my knowledge, they had never done this before, and they've never done it since. But they actually posted an audition notice in the student center for the fall season. And I was like, oh, well, that looks like fun. Maybe I'll go and try that. So I go and audition, and I have 2 directors fighting over me to use me. And one was for the Blue Monster, and apparently I was told later that the director wanted me to play the Blue Monster, and then the other was for the Homecoming, playing Joey in the Homecoming.
Oh wow!
And the director the director of the Homecoming had seniority, so she ended up getting me. And I was, in retrospect, I was totally unprepared for Pinter at the time. I just didn't have, I kind of mugged my way through that performance in retrospect, but hopefully we're always getting better, right?
Well, yeah.
And
you took that leap of faith.
Right.
That's the all-important theater thing.
Oh yeah. And it was at that point, like somewhere in the middle of the rehearsal process where I was like, oh, I guess I'm a theater major now. I was like, this is where I belong. This is my home. And so I became a theater major, and I never looked back. My life is filled with things like that. I dated my wife for like 6 weeks before I was like, well, I guess we're boyfriend and girlfriend now.
This is getting real.
Yeah, I guess, I sort of find myself in a place and go, oh, I guess we're here now. And it's only after I've jumped in the water and dived 50 feet that I understand where I'm at, But, so that's my story. It's, theater is, it takes you. Like, it takes you. Sometimes it takes you quick, and sometimes it's like being a vampire.
Yeah, right.
You get bitten, and you're like, I'm gonna fight it. Oh, and then you're a creature of the night.
This is so true.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that's my story. So you became a theater major. You went to school, MSU?
Yeah, I went to MSU, theater major, psychology minor. And became involved with a group. That was during the Vietnam War, and I became involved with a group I had seen on one of the marches. They called the moratoriums, where we marched to the Capitol with our signs and, get out of Vietnam. And that was during the draft, so the movement was very, very big and had a lot of, it had a lot of risk. That war had a lot of risk for young men, right? Mm-hmm. And so people were trying to avoid the draft or going to Canada or resisting or going. And anyway, I won't get into that, but I saw them marching, and they all had white face with a peace symbol in black. And it was dramatic and moving, and they did some what we called then guerrilla theater, which is just sort of you drop in and you perform and then you leave. And so I watched them do their thing, and they had a drum and tambourine, and they were called the Street Corner Society. And apparently this kind of started as a project in somebody's class. I don't remember who, but and I don't remember how I got involved with them, whether they had an open call or something. Mm-hmm. But I thought this makes a lot of sense to me, because it sort of married my passion for social justice and peace, mm-hmm. and theater. And since they were all theater majors, they were good, and that's what the Street Corner Society became. We developed some plays. One of them was called The Woman Play, later called Woman and Man, because it was about how we get our roles sort of designated for us as men and women in this society. Mm-hmm. So, and the play was very good. It was directed by Phil Heald, who now is an actor and director too, Anthony Heald. He was in Silence of the Lambs and stuff, played the doctor in that. But anyway, he was a grad student, and he asked us if he could work with us and develop a play. So we did that, and later opened for a lot of feminists that were talking in rallies and so forth, and Gloria Steinem, Robin Morgan. And so that was all a great education, and I felt like when I came back from Tanglewood and I was involved with the Street Corner Society, that these were really alive and palpable things I could grasp onto, that I felt like were moving me more along in my story or my process. And I felt that the academic classes were not. So I dropped out. And part of it too was because we didn't have a lot of money. So I knew that it was hard for my dad. He had had a heart attack, and even though I was working at Woolworth, well, it was called Woolco, but it was like Kmart, Mm-hmm. I thought this is not working for me and for him. So I sort of went a different route, and after MSU, and after working with the Street Corner Society, I went home for a while to help my parents after my dad's second heart attack, and my sister came home too, and we sort of, worked in the family and helped out. And I did some wonderful theater there with community theaters in Saginaw and Midland. Wonderful leading roles in Butterflies Are Free. I played Aldonza in Man of La Mancha, mm-hmm. this huge production in Midland. And, so again, sort of working along the path in a different way. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I went back to Tanglewood and worked in a restaurant so I could work with these two people again. From there, I followed my coach to Hedgerow. She said, I think you should come and be in the company. And that was amazing. I wish every young actor could have that experience of working in a theater company where we lived at the house, which was like built in the Revolutionary War days. It was huge. Fireplaces, big kitchen, long corridor, rooms upstairs. The registrar's office for the school was there, and Rose taught in the big room, which was also where we ate. The theater was down the hill. It was an old mill, and
So you basically lived and worked in
yes,
this place.
yeah, and we traded. We had roles that rotated all the time. You cooked, you cleaned. Well, we all cleaned the house every Saturday, but your cooking rotation, then you could be parking cars one night, and the next show you'd be running the lights, building the set, stage managing, acting. So you did it all. And then I ended up being the bookkeeper at the box office, so I learned all about that.
Mm.
Then I was the registrar at the school, so I had to balance that every month. And I got to study with Rose,
And how long did you work at that company?
I want to say 2 or 3 years, maybe.
Wow.
Then Phil began working at the Boar's Head Theater, which, was one of the great old Lansing institutions of Michigan theater, which is now not any longer operating.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, it had been started by 2 guys that met in college, John Peaks and Richard Thompson. And Phil was there as one of the assistant producers. And he asked me to come and do a role in Hot L Baltimore and be a part of this fringe company called the OKU's Theater Company, which was an improv group.
Wow.
So we developed some shows from that. One was Club Soda that we performed at a couple of nightclubs there. And at the theater, we would do like the 11 o'clock show on Friday and Saturday nights. So that was a blast. I got to play roles in theater, and then I got to be in an improvisational company at the same time. So that was great. I kind of stayed there. I stayed there. And it was being there that took me to audition at Meadowbrook.
And then
I got my card.
And then you got your card. Was Boar's Head an equity house at the time?
Not at that time, but then they did become that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a rich place to work also because I was offered my first directing job there, Stephen Metcalf's Half a Lifetime, which was a play about these men facing their 30s, they're, half a lifetime.
Oh, God.
And it was amazing. And I said to Richard, why are you asking me? I'm a woman. And he said, I think they'll behave for you. And because these actors all knew each other very well. And so that made me laugh. And that's where I met Steve Wildern, who was the stage manager. So that's, again, part of the steps along the road, because we ended up getting married and having 2 kids down the ways. But so I would come back from New York. I finally realized I had to go to New York because I auditioned at several places, and they'd say, well, if you're in anything in New York, let me know, or I'd have to see you in New York. Mm-hmm. So we tried to do some regional at the theaters, but basically I thought, so I gotta go. So I went there, and I lived there for almost 15 years. And then because of Steve and I being married and him having a job offer at the Lansing Center for the Arts as the building engineer, and we moved back here.
Was that sad for you to leave New York, or were you excited to come back?
Well, I just thought this is a new opportunity. I knew I was getting older. Steve said his father was getting older. We thought if we were here, for a while, when we lived in Lansing after we got married, I still was doing theater and was branching out more into more teaching. And then that directing led to more directing. I had worked in New York with Michael Moriarty. He was starting a fledgling approach to Shakespeare. And I read this in the trades, and I thought, well, this is interesting. Shakespeare's a little intimidating, so let me see what that's about. And it was fantastic because he broke it down into honoring the iambic pentameter, but also finding the passion, because Shakespeare's stuff is big, as we both know.
Yeah.
You playing Mr. M, and
yes,
the stuff that I did, the nurse.
The nurse. Yeah,
that was great working with you
were
on
fantastic.
That was amazing. And wasn't it great to be outside? Shakespeare's big, like the sky.
I will say, doing a Shakespearean soliloquy while staring into the sunset has to be one of the most spiritual experiences an actor can have.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous. I miss it. I miss outdoor drama in that sense.
Yeah.
What I don't miss is the ice cream
Airplane.
truck.
Yeah.
Parking in the parking lot and trying to lure the kids in the audience over to their ice cream or
the fire trucks
or the angry train people.
The angry train people, the people playing that fly thing.
Oh yeah, frisbee golf and stuff like. But you get and you give. Right?
Right.
And getting to do Shakespeare. Were you afraid of Shakespeare prior to that?
I was
experience?
intimidated by it.
What made you afraid of it?
Well, the language, the meter, wondering if
And you had done all these things. You had done improv. You had done,
I had done,
I mean, the Hot L Baltimore. You played what role did you play in the Hot L?
Oh, the hooker.
The hooker.
What was her name? April.
Yeah, I mean, and
April Green.
And the characters in that play aren't exactly like, very stately. It's not like you're doing a British,
No.
Right. What do they call them? Drawing room plays or anything like that. I mean, it's a real.
But when you're in a company, though, that's the great part. What you're bringing up is a great thing that also is missing. When you're in a company, like we did, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. She Stoops to Conquer, Hot Up Baltimore. I mean, it was like that kind of a season. And you made enough to live in Lansing and enough to go out to the bar with everybody afterwards and have a beer. And you learned people's rhythms, their breath. So there was a wonderful ensemble feeling there that doesn't exist.
Well, it's hard when you're basically itinerant from one play to another. I just had Rusty on, Rusty Miwa on last week, and he was talking about working in the Rose and that kind of atmosphere of watching your fellow cast members grow and saying, you weren't capable of that 2 years ago, and I'm sitting there both as your fellow performer and character on stage, seeing you unfold like this, and what in the moment you can't, you have to just live in it. But afterwards, after you step back and look back at what has happened, you can go, wow, that's amazing, and know that if they're doing it, you probably are doing it too, getting better.
That's true. They do have a kind of a company feeling there, don't they? They hire a lot of the same people.
But there's very few of those theaters
left
in
there used to
the
be
world. But
a lot more help from the government, grants and subsidies, and it just keeps getting cut.
Yeah, and you've seen that, you've noticed that.
Oh yeah, because I've been with theaters that have tried to, scrambling after grant after grant, and but the Michigan Council for the Arts used to support a lot. Don't know how much they're able to do now, and the federal government did, Yeah, it's different. It's harder.
What's the big difference that you notice now in Michigan theater that you didn't see? I mean, Is there anything better now?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more theaters.
Okay.
Slipstream.
Slipstream, yeah.
Yeah, Kickshaw.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I could go on and on, but some of them, they're open book, they're niche, and they sometimes can hire equity with a special letter, but a lot of times they have to stay with the non-equity, and that's unfortunate. But what are you gonna do? It's a great network of people,
Mm-hmm.
and they're supportive generally once you get into that network.
Mm-hmm. How would you have burned a bridge?
Oh, blah blah blah.
Well,
we have to have this, or I thought you were going to have that by,
mm-hmm.
why didn't you respond about the thing? And and you kind of see people going, oh man.
Oh, yeah, but then they see you on stage and they're like,
well.
Hi, don't forget to watch the second part of this interview on Friday. See you then.